Hi, this program is about becoming our healthiest selves. This is the first in 6 programs. And the idea is that we want to cheer on the garden of health that exists within each one of us. This garden of health just needs a little nurturing to succeed in most cases. So we have these internal mechanisms for getting well. They are inherent or God-given. And really, health is about just keeping these natural processes from being hampered or hindered. So Hippocrates is credited as saying that the natural healing force within each one of us is the greatest force for getting well. So we want vibrant health. We want to thrive in all aspects of life: physical, mental, social, emotional, spiritual. We could think of vibrant health as a state of wholeness or harmony when we're in balance, when the body has a sense of unity with all its systems. And the bottom line is we want to feel better, right? We want to feel better for our day and having more energy to love and serve and contribute. So there's going to be 5 aspects that we cover. Perhaps the most important is about connection and love, right? We're social beings. This sense of connection and love and support and contributing to our communities, our families, our relationships be the most important thing. But we're going to cover that one in the last session, the 6th session. The first 3 sessions, we're going to focus on nourishment. It's so hard to get the proper nourishment in our current culture or, environment. Movement and exercise, we all know that's important. That'll be our 4th session. And then unwinding and sleeping, we're going to cover those in our 5th session. And it's important to keep in mind, to have patience and compassion, patience with ourselves. So we know that metabolically speaking, only 12% of the American adult population is metabolically healthy. So what does metabolism mean, or metabolic health? Well, metabolism refers to all of the biochemical processes that are going on at the body all at once, that are orchestrating to maintain health and wellness and vibrance in the body. But there's signs that this metabolic health is declined, and these are the expanding waistline, rising cholesterol levels, high blood pressure, climbing blood sugar levels. And the World Health Organization has termed this metabolic syndrome a global pandemic. What is metabolic syndrome in a little more detail? So this metabolic syndrome is it's a group of risk factors that are highly associated with the modern health problems and these chronic diseases, say diabetes and heart disease and even dementia. So the signs are enlarged waist. This is a sign that there's fat inside and around the internal organs of the body. And blood pressure over 120 over 80, and high levels of low-density lipoprotein. Low-density lipoprotein, especially the very low-density lipoproteins, are believed to be the ones that are scraping along the sides of our blood vessels that have the potential to inflict damage in the epithelium, or that internal lining of the blood vessels. And elevated fasting insulin levels, and elevated fasting glucose levels. So some of the leading causes of preventable disease. This is from the Journal of the American Medical Association, a large-scale study that was done from 1990 to 2016. It looked at what it believed to be the major risk factors. one would think, physical inactivity is going to be an important thing, but as you can see, it's number 5 on the list there, 5 or 6 actually. And the number 1 is dietary risk factors. So that's why it's important to really look at the diet. Movement exercise, we know that's important for a metabolic syndrome. And we're going to talk about this more in session 4. But just to kind of wet your whistle and give you a little encouragement, this graph shows that, the blue line that as if somebody's exercised their whole life, their chances of staying above that threshold of disability and being able to take care of themselves, closer to the end of their lives is quite a bit greater. But of course, if we have a sedentary lifestyle, right, we naturally are going to have a greater chance. It's not destiny, but a much greater chance of having disability for several years towards the end of our lives and needing to be more dependent on others. But this green line represents the fact that if you begin an exercise program, really at any age, you can extend your functionality and health well into old age. The main problem is diet. So if we look at caloric intake from the early 60s until the present times, so this is a difference of about 800 calories per day. It's the excess intake of meat, dairy, alcohol, processed foods with the added sugars, oils, chunky carbs, and of course, chemicals. But guess which one of these might have the greatest impact on this increased caloric content? And according to this source, it's the oils. If you look at processed foods, there's oils in everything. Oils, like fats, they are 9 calories per gram, whereas carbohydrates are 4 calories per gram, or proteins are 4 calories per gram. And so 9 calories per gram makes the oil, just a little bit of oil, a whole lot further as far as contributing to the caloric content of our foods. And alcohol, incidentally, is 7 calories per gram. So can we just exercise those 800 calories away? Well, you could, but it would involve, just to get back to like the 1961 baseline, you'd have to walk about 8 miles a day. So it is the ultra-processed foods that are the main problem. It's clogging up our systems and making us sick. This is a really interesting study about ultra-processed foods versus unprocessed foods. They had a group of volunteers that they admitted into like a hospital complex with a cafeteria so you can control the food intake. For 2 weeks, they ate nothing but processed foods. And for 2 weeks, they would eat nothing but the unprocessed foods. And so you can see by the blue line how they ate, kind of what the average American tends to eat. They tend to eat, over 3,000 calories when consuming the processed food. But notice they just, they had the opportunity to eat all they want, but they just didn't want to eat more of a normal amount of food when eating the unprocessed food. And then this is kilograms, so it's just a couple of pounds of weight that they gained while eating the 2 weeks of eating the ultra-processed foods. And then they just naturally started to lose that weight when they ate the unprocessed food. The other interesting fact in this study was the rate of consumption. People ate their food much more quickly when eating the processed food. It was easy for them to consume the higher number of calories more quickly. So let's look a little more detail at 200 calories of processed versus unprocessed foods. So let's look at these liquid sugar calories here in Coca-Cola. There's 200 calories. And there's 200 calories of broccoli. What an incredible difference. just thinking about ease of consumption, right? You could, if you're thirsty, right, you could drink down those 200 calories like nothing, flat. Whereas consuming that broccoli is going to take a while, right? And, which is going to fill you up and which is going to contribute to your health and which is going to contribute to your demise. And 200 calories of chips here. Of course, speaking of oil, you need a lot of oil on these chips to keep that crap to stay on there. And 200 calories of avocado. French fries, the old famous French fries. And of course, big bulk of the calories is the oil on there. Between the salts and the oil, it makes it really hard to stop eating. And of course, the beans are going to be a lot healthier option for the 200 calories. But isn't it true that you could consume this entire top row before you can, even make a dent in that broccoli? So let's look at Doritos here. Think for a minute, why do they have such a long list of ingredients here? With many of these things, it's even hard to pronounce. Why on earth would they add all of these things to this product? I don't think it's to make us healthier, right? It's to make a product that is going to have these like this optimum crunch and appeal, and texture. And it's going to have these bliss points, with taste that are going to encourage our reward centers in our brains, because they really don't want us to eat, just what it says here in the serving size of 11 chips, right? They're promoting their product. They want us to eat as many chips as we can, sell more chips that way. I want to share this quote from the Baha'i writings. If humankind lived according to a natural inborn equilibrium without following whatever their passions led, it is undeniable that disease would no longer take the ascendant, nor diversify with such intensity. But man hath perversely continued to serve his lustful appetites, and he would not content himself with simple foods. Rather, he prepared for himself food that was compounded of many ingredients, of substances differing one from another. With this and with the penetrating vial of ignoble acts, his attention was engrossed, and he abandoned the temperance and moderation of a natural way of life. The result was the engendering of diseases both violent and diverse. This quote reminded me this kind of idea of adding all of these sort of ingredients and compounded of many ingredients is substances differing one from another, and this relationship to engendering disease. And I think it's so true that we're seeing this cancer and heart attacks, and these are violent diseases. So let's think about some terms that we've probably all heard of, right? We know that certain foods are antioxidants and certain foods are oxidants. So the antioxidants, right, help clear up our systems, and the oxidants tend to make our systems more sluggish and promote inflammation in the body. So the oxidants, foods that look like this, right? They're greasy, they're brown, processed. And they come from places like this and from snack foods that look a lot like this. On the other hand, the antioxidants, it might not have the eye appeal that some of these other processed foods, do have, because they don't, overstimulate our reward centers. And meals might look a little more like this. And snacks, maybe a little more like that, closer to the whole natural foods. So the oxidants gum up our bodies, clog our systems up, and the antioxidants clear our systems up and allow our metabolic health to improve. So, but on the other hand, we want to enjoy our food. So we want to really think about what are these natural whole foods that, we can enjoy. This is from Eat to Beat Disease by William Lee, this list of foods that I'm going to show you here. This is in the supplemental materials, but it's kind of good to look through and just to think, what are some of these natural foods that you would enjoy? And of course, the way we prepare them and season them can make a big difference as well. But we can really enjoy natural whole foods. We just have to allow ourselves to transition away from these processed foods. And in our supplemental materials, you also have this list that you can make, print out, and begin to think about some healthier options for your meals. So a couple of discussion questions. Why might the individual not be the main problem? If 2/3 of Americans are overweight and 88% of us have metabolic disease, is it really that, the individuals just can't control themselves? Or is the bigger problem that, we have this environment that's just not healthy? So the image there, a petri dish, if you're trying to grow some organisms inside the petri dish and the organisms are not thriving, it's not that you would blame the individual organisms. You'd be saying, what's going on in the broth that's not encouraging the organisms to thrive. So the processed foods, for example, are what's in our broth or our environment that's not enabling us to thrive. Living in this environment, though, right, we have to deal with it, right? It's not going to be easy. And there's a number of reasons. So, to be aware of those reasons is good, that it helps empower you to counter them, right? So we have this food environment, this industrialization of the food industry. And we have the food culture now that encourages constant eating, 6 to 11 times a day. And we'll go into that in a later program. And social influences, right? We tend to encourage each other to eat junky things and to have sweet lattes all the time and, all sorts of social influences. And sedentary work environment, and sedentary culture, stress, right? Fatigue, trauma, less sleep, and habits, from our youth, right? We've learned to eat processed foods. So I don't know about you, but I grew up eating a lot of these junkier cereals, Cocoa Puffs and Captain Crunch and a lot of cavities to show for it. 1/3 of the content of these cereals is sugar. So why become our healthiest selves? When you have a very difficult thing to do to overcome this food environment, you really need a strong why. So I would like you to reflect for a minute about why do you want to be your healthiest self? And this is from the Baha'i writing. It gives me pause for reflection. It says, looking after one's health is done with two intentions. Man may take good care of his body for the purpose of satisfying his personal wishes, or he may look after his health with the good intention of serving humanity and of living long enough to perform his duty towards mankind. The latter is the most commendable. If we have a purpose or a why that's outside of ourselves and our own personal wishes, satisfying urges, and we have a greater sense of purpose, right? That's going to be a stronger why. So why do you want to become your healthiest self? So again, the 5 areas that we want to keep in mind are holistic health approach, towards regaining metabolic health, more vibrant health, connection, nourishment, movement, need to unwind, and stress at times, right? And to sleep well, right? So these are our goals. Okay, thanks a lot. I hope this recording helps you.